Hello everyone. I hope you all are doing fine. And just quickly let me know in the chat box that if you can hear me loud and clear. Quickly write clear in the chat box, then we'll begin. And today is one of the special session that we're gonna take on Dryden and of course the restoration poetry. So tell me quickly that you can hear me loud and clear, then we'll begin. Also, start. Anyway, let me know quickly how many of you are there. You can say hi in the chat box. Right. Okay. So let's start. People are not yet there, but we'll begin anyway. They can watch it. One of the most important thing that we always discuss when we start our class, that what we have studied so far and how many questions did we cover so far, right? So we started from where? Greco-Roman, right? And in that period, how many questions did you solve? PYQ somewhere around how many? 30 plus, I guess. That many questions were there, and some of those questions we solved here in our live session, but the rest was there in your where PYQ quizzes, and that you can access where either GLC or Google Classroom, or you can access. And what else we have introduced, exactly like uh, like in the exam, you do your exam, and then whatever the format is there, that CBT format, we have now newly launched that format as well, that you can easily find where in your Google Classroom. So I was talking about Greco-Roman period. 30 plus question we solved, and we are expecting around 3 questions from there also. And mostly it will be indirect questions will be there, or maybe they might ask a direct question from who? Aeschylus, or sometime Aristophanes and Sophocles, all these uh, playwrights in the Greco-Roman period, right? So that's all we have discussed in Greco-Roman, and of course, why it's important time, what you Plato's question, and that usually Plato and Aristotle, both of these, what we get there about criticism part that we already discussed. You can access those videos and YouTube itself, right? So that was all about Greco-Roman. Then we discussed about ancient, uh, not ancient, but kind of old English, you can say. And in old English, we don't get many questions at all. Sometimes we get one question from Beowulf, usually. And what in Beowulf we get? The chronology order. Right, then we move to middle period, and there we get questions, especially from Chaucer. They, in between, like sometime they have stopped asking from Chaucer, but these days they have started asking again. So again, mostly about his style, and sometime about his work and chronology order. And what you get in chronology order? The name Chaucer's with whatever the age period he was, whatever the age was, right? So that's what you get usually in your exam. So that was all about Middle English. Then we also talked about a couple of more, and Elizabethan, right? And there what we got how many questions from Shakespeare alone? We had 30 plus questions. Then others like Sydney, we have solved Sydney around 16 to 17 questions, and you are definitely going to get one question from Sydney and two questions from 1, 2, and somewhere around 10 questions we have already covered in those. And then again, after that, we have Jacobian. Jacobian we have, right, and somewhere around how many questions we get? Two question, and usually they are in match the following, all these stuff, and where chronology order, and sometime pair, correct the, select the correct pair of the author or their associated work. Right, that's all we discuss. We already discussed, and that's kind of question you always encounter in your exam, right? So that was all about Jacobian, and of course, after Jacobian, we talked about Milton, and we get a lot of question on Milton. Sometime you get three times mentioned, not directly, but sometime indirectly, but you definitely get one question direct from Milton itself. It could be Paradise Lost, chronology order, and all this stuff, and whatever that we have all the codes, right? Like earlier, later, middle, that kind of formula we follow in every author or poet. When you apply these, formula, what you get? Bonus, two questions, right? And it's very easy, like, in Milton example, at the end he wrote his great poetry, kind of epic at that time, right? So he wrote in great work in his later career. In the beginning, just started with poems, started with we have, Charles, that Horatian ode, the return of the Cromwell, all these things, right? That we get in the beginning. And then in the middle, most of the middle period, somewhere around where to for like 15 years. So 1644 to somewhere around, you can say 75, 60 to 75. In that period, what happens? 61, remember, started with his career with 1659, that thing we talked about, that poem, and then he started from 61 to usually till 70 prose, whatever facts are there, right? And about divorce, about areopagitia, and all these stuff in the middle period. And at the end, we have all Paradise Lost, we have Regained, we have, right? And Lycidas, we have all these things in his later, actually not Lycidas but Samson agnostic at the end. So through that, earlier we always know we have early poems, Camus, Lycidas, all these things in early, so that we have already discussed. Right, hey Vasundhara, good afternoon. You are a little bit late, but no problem. We are anyway revising what we have discussed, and you can add that 10 plus 2 means 12 questions already. Right, and then we talked about uh, in Caroline era, we talked about some of the important poets, prose writers, and also mostly poets, they ask. So that we already discussed. So total together, we have somewhere around, if you just count all these things, we have somewhere around 20 questions already done. So that's quite a lot of number, and if you have attended all these sessions that we are doing, somewhere around 10 to 15 lectures till now, that is, if you just take average, even though it's 1.5, right? 1.5, or kind of two questions in every session you're getting average. So do not miss it. It's very important that you should attend all the session. So today, very important, what we are going to do, we are talking about what? Dryden and the Restoration Age. And basically what we are going to cover, all the poetry till 1700. And then tomorrow we're going to talk about Restoration comedy. But very important, that the for by giving you some historical background. Not important, but what you should know, the reign and what all things happened. So there are, you don't have to remember much. There are only three historical events. First, Charles execution, first event, execute, right? Then execute, what we have again, like for some years, somewhere around, then we have like restoration 16, and at the end we have the revolution, which is 1688. So these three major event, if you remember, the historical is done, right? So that's all. Let me tell you other stuff about it. So as you know, the execution happened. Remember the date. Charles reigned 1600 to 1649, and in 49 he was kind of executed, right? And then for that brief period, around how many, 11 years of what we have, this period, interregnum, till Charles II returns, and that what marked our restoration period, 1660. Dates are very important. 1649, 49, then 1660, very important two dates. And based on that, we will create what, our all the codes and the chronology order. Right. So let me tell you about the monarchy at that time. Charles II came right to the throne, and then the restoration period marked. And what happens in, what happened to that period till 88? Okay, what happened there? I'll tell you. New political settlement happened. Then the king's, something is happening that I cannot figure out what. Anyway, King James then come, just brief reign. Remember that 16, just for 3 years. Very important that you should know. James second, 3 years, and our Charles second, 1660 to 85. Then 3 years gap. Then we have what, the revolution, right? Then what happened? What other things happen? Is the Commonwealth promoted decorum. So some of the thing that I would like to mention here about the literary development at that time. So Dryden praised Charles II in Absalom and Achitophel through what? Through that biblical character. Remember David, right? Then we have the character Absalom and Achitophel that of course we'll discuss in detail when we talk about Dryden. Anyway, you know the Great Revolution 1688, remember the date. And then Charles Lamb also wrote on the artificial comedy of the last century, and it was about a restoration period. And why we have mentioned this point? Because there was one, in option A, B, C, D, E, and in that option one of them was that Charles Lamb on the artificial comedy of the last century. Very important. L.C. Knight is known for his essay, A Restoration Comedy, and it was where in match the following questions. So that you have to remember. Edward Bond also wrote Restoration. It was also in the match the following in the same question. So that's why it's important to mention whatever they have asked in the past, and through that, when you learn more about the past or the history, you can easily predict the future. And in your case, the future is what? Your exam. Right. So that's all I'm gonna. So the mood is set, right? Shall we begin or shall we start? You can just write start in the chat box, then we'll begin our. Okay, great. So let me tell you about new classicism as well. And at the time, classicism, beginning when we talked about all Latin stuff, Greco-Roman and all these stuff, right? But new classicism, what happened here? The translation stuff happened, the adaptation happened, all these things, right? So these things they have, uh, you know, in the new classicism. And in new classicism, who's famous are Pope, right? Then we have Moliere, greatly influenced Restoration period. Then French and classical again modeled. You can see it where in Dryden's that influence you can see in Dryden's dramatic poesy. When you talk about that dramatic poesy, when you read, you will get a lot of thing about French drama. When you read, I have read dramatic poesy, the text also, so I kind of got bored by only listening about the at the end, at the end of the this dramatic poesy, we only get a chance to know about English and who talk Neander. So Neander argument is at the end. So basically it starts with the all these four members. They start with ancient Greek, Latin, and then they talk about Italian, then talk about French, and at the end they talk about what? Poetry, rhyme, and theater by who? Our Neander. So that's all happened at the end, and that's where they ask question. You get question from that. So if you wanna read it, you can go and you can just skip all over the thing and whatever the things are. You can just somewhere around 20 to 30 page you can read. If you want to read, those pages are important, but you don't have to read it for you. As I always say, I read all and just make it very to the point where you don't have to wander anywhere. You just get these notes, and then read, and then your question, your exam is done. You don't have to go anywhere, right? So, about and as Dryden started his career from what? Tyrannic love, heroic play, and Pope's age. Then what happened? Remember this line, important. Those rules of old discovered, not devised, are nature stilled, but nature methodized. And that was also asked in restoration, based question, where again the statement, and then you had to just identify this who kind of coined this. Anyway, let me tell you one more thing. There was correctness. This word was important because in your exam they have asked it, so that's why we have kind of added here. Dryden's work, as you know, considered as copious, and Johnson called Dryden the Augustan to the Rome, so did for the English literature or poetry. Found a brick and left marble. Exactly same in literature for Dryden. Who said? Johnson. So Dryden's idea dominated literature through the 18th century. Then we'll talk about now it's time that we know what is a restoration period and what else happened in that small kind of section. And you see this is small, but if you go deep it's kind of mammoth. So what I did here is I just got the important point for you, whatever they have asked in the exam. As I always say, it's very important. If you kind of create your notes through past papers, then it's very easy for you to crack the exam, and you'll know what kind of work is important, what to accept, what to omit, what to throw away, and what to keep in, right? So that's what we are gonna kind of see here. So restoration poetry, when it is start, you should know that restoration means rhyme happening, what lyric, some ode you can find, and some epic. So epic is one person we have, and which who is Devanant Gondibert. And when we talk about ode, we have like two odes here. One is by Dryden himself, first work, and then we have other that we'll talk about. And then what we have to talk, the lyrics. So there are so many lyric poet that we talk about. Remember one thing, in restoration period, other than Dryden, there is no one important in your exam except his rival, who? Shadwell. Right. So that you should much you kind of read and kind of remember all these. So you should know, and you should also focus only on Dryden here. But I will, as I always say, we have the backup, right? Sometime out of blue, their mind, examiners mind change, and what they do, they just throw a question at you saying, okay, then what you have to counter attack. So give a nothing. So anyway, that's all about the fun here, and let me tell you the English poet. What happened? Lagged in the. There is no national poem. First national poem we know, we had Spencer Fairy Queen, all about that patriotism, all these, you know, thing, King Arthur model, right? And before that, Spencer, we have Arthurian model and all. Then what we have, epic, epic in we have restoration, right? Restoration started when 1660, right? And when was Milton's poetry was written, Paradise Lost? 1667, right? So it was written in restoration, so that's why we have epic. So two epics now, Gondibert epic, and then we have Paradise Regained, right? Somewhere around 1671, if I'm not wrong. Along with that, one is also published, which was agnostic. So these two called brief epic, by who? Some Barbara that we already talked about. Brief epic. So if you just talk about all this, you will, I mean, if you just see Milton and other stuff, you will find all these, important dates in your restoration period. But anyway, I want to mention a couple of more things here. Again, Richard Blackmore wrote about Prince Arthur, King Arthur, all these, right? I wanted to tell you about the blank verse. Again, the same blank verse we are getting from the beginning, right? Starting with Howard and Henry Howard, all these people. Then we have who? Our Milton used it, right? Marlowe made it mighty. Marlowe made it mighty. Shakespeare made it perfect. Milton made it grandeur, right? What? Milton's Miltonic line. So the improvement is still going on. And here, not much, everything is written usually in blank verse, but sometime in rhyme. And the best example you can see, the All for Love by Dryden, that you can see. Anyway, we'll talk about more. So that's all, guys. That's, you can just kind of restoration period, you can brief it through that, right? And then we have Samuel Butler. In Samuel Butler, what you have to remember, Hudibras, then you are done. Not much of the things. And Hudibras date, very important. So we have Utopia date, Paradise Lost date, then we have Hudibras date, right? And then we have what? Religio Laici. Actually get where in the chronology order. Then we have uh, religiology. Then we have another that about the doctor uh, Brown, as written, right? Religio Medici. One is right. Religio Medici something. Then we have what? We have Leviathan. We have uh, Bacon's the what? The advancement of learning. Then we have here. All these you should know in order. Very important. You get one question from all these by chronology order. Anyway, Hudibras date you should know. Very important. Hudibras is what? A satire on Puritanism. So there were Puritans, Protestant, right, and Catholic, all these, and that's when the kind of thing, kind of downfall started with, when there was kind of clash between all these belief and all. So for example, best example is for the Charles first, the execution by the court, right? And Elizabethan was tolerant for all these. She was very tolerant, so there was peace. And the king or the queen who, or any monarchy who's not happy with the religion, what happened? The rain falls, right? So that exactly happened. And Hudibras, remember the model Don Quixote's Sancho Panza, right? Uh, then what happened? These all. Some about octosyllabic ingenious, to remember the date and who wrote it. One question was there. Hudibras of Samuel Butler reflect on the revolt against Puritanism. That was the question in 8 years. In fact, 7 years. In only one question, direct question I'm talking about. That was Hudibras modeled on Puritanism. Others you didn't get much of the questions here about other poet other than Dryden. So Sir William Davenant, remember the date, who's also kind of what you can say, Shakespeare's godfather. Some gossip is also Shakespeare was godfather, and some say father also. So that you have to remember. Davenant. What you have to remember? The Gondibert. Gondibert is where the other work you can see here. The Temple of Love, Britannia, Triumphant. Not much to remember. You should also know that George Herbert actually wrote uh, about a play, To My Worthy Friend M. Davenant. And there are a set of works that you just should have idea. There is another volume of poem about Madagascar, but basically what you have to remember, the Gondibert, very important, Gondibert, and remember the date also. There was kind of no questions on Gondibert or Davenant, but you should know for your backup. The important is the siege of Rhodes made a representation by the art of perspective in the scene and the story sung in recited. What you have to know? The siege of Rhodes. Again, Thomas Killigrew. What you have to know, that he was again in English another playwright and poet. He was also a poet. And William Congreve appropriated some of the jokes in the Parson Wedding and published The Prisoner and Clara Sela. What you have to know, the others are there. Remember that. Nahum Tute. Why this guy is important for you? Because of the history of King Lear adaptation from King Lear. And he was your poet laureate. Thomas Shadwell. When you talk about Dryden, there is no run, kind of running away from Sadwell also. So they were quite bitter enemy at that time. And and that's how he made name, right? So remember, there was a kind of battle between them through their poem and satire that we'll talk about. So Shadwell, what you have to know, he was poet laureate. And when Dryden kind of, they took away the title and they kind of given to who? Thomas Sadwell. Remember what happened? Juvenile's the 10th satire, and he actually kind of attacked John Dryden. Not like, kind of indirect attacking, but the direct attack is there on Dryden. And what Dryden did, he wrote a reply where I'll tell you. Right, if you know in the chat box. Anyway, I'll tell you. So Shadwell wrote what 18 plays, including all these, what you have to remember: The Enchanted Island and the Juvenile 10th Satire, just before 1687. Right? Guys, it's you to kind of sit back, relax. We are gonna have a wild ride, and what's gonna happen? You're gonna going to get three questions correct. We have the order also, and that we'll talk about. Right. So get your coffee, get your water bottle, whatever, and sit and relax because it's gonna be like 30 to 40 minutes session, and then you're done. Okay, guys, let me tell you about John Dryden. The first thing when we talk about is 1631, 1700 to any author, the life span. And when it comes to Dryden, it's like a must that you should know the date. 70, somewhere 70 years of his career. And that was a kind of big and long career, literary career. That means you're gonna have to study all about him. And when you know the merit of Dryden, I mean the poet like Dryden, he never kind of, like, some poet have, very poor writing in the beginning, then some kind of middle, and the pure maturity is at the end, right? These phases are there. But in Dryden, what happens, all the poems and all the work he did is like a masterpiece. Like a There is not even a mistake that you'll find in Dryden. And that's why Johnson said what Dryden, what he did, like Augustine did for Rome, Dryden did for English literature. What? Brick to marble. Remember that. Very important. Okay, so let me tell you about Dryden. Again, fruitful, long career. He wrote poems, plays, prose. High quality. Then Dryden's poetry remained fresh even in old age. Even if you read now, some of them are very hilarious in the sense, satiric, that you will laugh, and some of them are very serious, like in All for Loves, All World Well Lost, whatever it is, right? Anyway, he was born in Northamptonshire, August 9. That's my birthday also. So 1631. Easy for me to remember, right? Okay, so Dryden came from a landowning family with political connection, studied in King's Scholar, Westminster School, rhetoric, argument, his influenced his writing and critical thought. His first poem published in 1649. So when we create a kind of chronology order, what we did, the earliest, right? The earliest, then, sorry, the earliest play, yes, and then his last one, and middle. That's how we make formula, right? To remember everything. So earliest here is what we have. Earliest poem about uh, accession, that Cromwell's, or you can just simply put like heroic stanza. Earlier we have heroic stanza, and the last one is what? Let me see. Okay, so last one we have Hind and the Patha, right? So you can make it like that. Okay, we are just saying stanza is his first work, right? Okay, and he supported also who? Oliver Cromwell. And then when Charles II come, he supported him also. So the kind of opportunities he thought about what is his best interest, right? So that's what happened here. He also, what important thing happened in his life, that he kind of converted to Catholic. So in the beginning, he was very opportunist, you can say, and then at the end, he kind of loyal. He became very loyal. In the beginning, he was like, if there is profit, he will go this way. If there is profit in this side, he will go that side. But at the end, what? He was kind of loyal to one thing, what? Catholicism. That's where he wrote what? Hind and the Patha. Hind for the milk, and the Patha, we'll see. Anyway, so if you remember this, and what happened? Dryden lost poet laureate. So when he was kind of loyal, when there is loyalty, what happens? Sometime reward you get, and sometime what you get? Lose something because of your belief. So if you're not flexible, then you might lose something. And in Dryden's case, what happened? He lost the greatest post there as a poet laureate. He lost it to who? Shadwell. ओके, सो बोलते हैं ना, आग में घी डालने वाला काम. सो ओके, दैट ही लॉस्ट poet laureate, it's okay, but he lost to who? His kind of staunch enemy, to Shadwell. Then what happened? He was more furious for this thing. So that's all happened. What happened at the end? There was kind of, he died, buried in Westminster Abbey, all the great people, right? All the great poet in Westminster Abbey, or great personality. And his kind of funeral was not like normal few people are there. It was a grand funeral. So that's all about our, just jump in what? Code, career especially. So remember the code: heroic, extra, mirror. So what happened? We, suppose you know some person who just try to be becoming more hero and all, right? So you can just, that's a silly code for you to remember anyway. You can make your own code, good or better, and how silly it was. What is ultimate matter is that you should remember when you sit in front of your computer, where in the exam hall, if it comes, you should not, right? So what? Heroic extra mira means what? Heroic stanza, very important. Extra means what? We have Astria redux means extra, mira means mirabilis, right? That what mirable, I'll tell you here. Where is the date? Where is the date? Mm, anyway, we'll find it. I am not able to see right now, but I'll see. So remember this code, right? Heroic, Astria Redux, and all. So let me tell you about the heroic stanza. It was about the funeral of Cromwell's funeral in 1658, published in 59, just 1 year before Restoration Age. So you should remember this. 37 quadrant, not important. What you have to remember that it's his first work. In 1660, what happened? Restoration happened, right? And he celebrated that with the work Astrea Redux 1660. Very important. Samuel Johnson excused Dryden for this writing in his Lives of the Poet. If he changed with the nation. What he means here, that first he celebrated what? Cromwell's, not celebrated, but kind of made kind of, yes, celebrated the hero in his heroic stanza, like he supported Cromwell's. Then who came? Charles II, right, in Restoration. Then he took a turn and praised who? Charles II in Astrea Redux. So some of, some of the people will say that he's opportunist, but Johnson says what? If he changed with the nation, right? Okay, so let me tell you about. He also notes what? That the earlier work was not totally forgotten and in fact raised him some enemies, and one of the enemies what? Shadwell. Methink I see those crowds on Dover's strand, who in their haste to welcome you land, choked up the beach with their still growing store, and make a wilder torrent on shore. It was where? In Astoria Redux. Okay. He published also what? To Sacred Majesty, not important to remember, but you should know that there was something in between that he has written to my Lord Chancellor. That year, Dryden was proposed to membership for the Royal Society. He was elected, and there itself he married Lady Elizabeth, actually the sister of Sir Robert Howard. And what Peep also records in his diary about Mr. Dryden, that he was always a poet till his death. So kind of he said Mr. Dryden the poet, Mr. Dryden the poet. That's how in his death also. So he remained the poet according to who? Peep. Right. So uh, for more than 15 years, what his career he devoted again entirely to what? Entirely to prose, plays, only plays. So like in Milton, earlier poem, then in the middle whole prose, and at the end great poetry, remember? And here what happens, in the beginning he wrote a couple of poems, and in the middle only plays, and at the end great poetries. Same, right? So that's exactly how you should create the formula to remember any author. So I was talking about 15 years of plays, the wild revival Indian, so that is a code for you to remember everything. The wild rival Indian queen and emperor fall in tyrannic love, and got married with Aurangzeb, for what? All for love. So that code if you remember, then your this middle period, that play will be done. So what? The wild rival Indian queen and emperor fall in tyrannic love and got married with Aurangzeb by the side, or whatever the code you can make that, for what? All for love, right? So that you have to remember. So wild gallant, and the rival ladies, Indian queen, the Indian queen, emperor, Indian emperor, we have, and what? Love, uh, in tyrannic love, right? And then what? They married, marriage a la mode, because they have asked question. That's why it's important to put, in the code, whatever the code you create, with Aurangzeb, for what? All for love. So you remember the code here, and then you will remember all the order of the plays. Anyway, so let me tell you about the Wild Gallant. What you have to remember, it's a first comedy published in 1663. So you remember 15, 16. So wait a minute, I'll just delete this first. First, 15, sorry, 1659. First work, Heroic Stranger. Then 1660, what? His Asteria Redux. Right. Then we have 1663 play Wild, and then the next 15 years plays. And while he was writing all these plays, then he wrote about these plays in, not about these plays but about the plays, basically from France, ancient Greek and modern English, in where dramatic poesy, which 67. So remember all these days, and at the end we have what? The great poetry, I mean, uh, what we have in great poetry, Absalom Achitophel, written in that a rebellion happened, right? Then we have all for love also we have in between here, so that you have to remember. That's how you can just calculate and make a proper table or kind of code for you to remember. So let me tell you about the rival ladies. What you have to remember, that it's a tragic comedy, that's all. Indian Queen, that it is again written in collaboration with Robert Howard. Indian Emperor, it's a sequel to Indian Queen, and what is important here is the line, "But of my crown thou too much care dost take, that which I value more, my love is at stake." Right, then again, some works are there. Secret Love, Sir Martin Mare, The Tempest is based on what? The Enchanted Island, based on this work. Okay, then we have Tyrannic Love. It's in the code. What you have to remember, there is a tyrant in that. So story is simple. Saint Catherine of Alexandria and her martyrdom, Roman Emperor Maximus, the tyrant of the title, who is enraged in Catherine's refusal to submit to his violent sexual passion. Other work we have Alzheimer Marriage Allah, that you have to remember that it is written by Dryden. The Assassination of Love, there is The Mistaken Husband, The State of Innocence, and The Fall of Man, an opera. What you have to remember in Aurangzeb, that it's a tragedy. It's about what? So you can say that in India, because after that there was Commonwealth, right? So every news was there about that thing. So Aurangzeb, a tragedy, very important, that he has mentioned here about what, uh, based on figure of Aurangzeb, Emperor of India. Everybody knows about Aurangzeb and of course Mughal Empire, right? Then we have All for Love. Very important at the end. Remember, we have a code that these, wild rival ladies, right? Who that uh, queen, then emperor, right? Marriage. Then what happened? Marriage with Aurangzeb, remember, and at the end, the great one is we have great plays is All for Love. So if you remember the code, it's easy to answer in the order. All for Love date you have to remember, which is 1678. Okay, and I'll also tell you about the plot. So if you have read Antonio and Cleopatra, then it's easy for you to remember All for Love. It's the kind of same story that is happening, but what is special here? The last hour of their life. So that is very important. Okay, so other works here you can see Limber, Ham, Oedipus a Tragedy, Troilus and Cressida, The Spanish Fire. All these work not important to remember. I mean, kind of read, but to remember you can just whatever is in bold and highlighted that you can remember. So then what significant event happened? So every significant event happened, he wrote something about it. Like in 49 16 uh, 59 he wrote that, remember, what about the Cromwell return. Then in 1660 he wrote about the restoration in Astria Redux, right? And here 1665 that bubonic plague happened. What he wrote? Dramatic poesy in that gap, 3 years, in 1667 and 68 both. Okay, so that's when he wrote. Then in what happened, I was talking about Mirabilis, right? Aeneas Mirabilis. So 1666 what happened? Great Fire. And Great Fire, what he wrote? Aeneas Mirabilis. So every great year he has written something. And 88, I'll tell you what he has written. A song of Saint Cecilia Days and the Hind and the Pathar, Great Revolution, just 1 year before. So that you have to add in your event. Okay, so if you know what is about, how he, how you can call him a kind of also a historiographer, if you can just mention, because whatever the great event happened, he has written something right about that, so that you have to know. So of dramatic poesy, remember the date always, 1668. The Great Fire of London, 66, just about Mirabilis, but published always 1 year later. So now happened. And following the death of William Davenant, April 1668, Dryden became the first official poet laureate. So we have Dryden first. Then what happened? We have Shadowell. So these two, because the title was taken from him and on sad to know. So we have cleared like two poet laureate together, right? So let me tell you about 1680. So all the great works, all the poems came later. Then we have 1681. What? Very important. Absalom. And then what we have? Macflacano. Then the medal. Then Religio Laici. And then we have Hind and the Patha, Saint Cecilia Days. So all kind of that in heroic stanza, the earlier work, right? Then we have at the end a song of Saint Cecilia. So heroic stanza and the song that you can kind of put in your then older Hind and the Patha time. So that code you can also mention. And for these two, you should create a code. If you can, it'll be really helpful for you to remember every single thing. So how you can make it? Tell me. So abs, right? Mac, Macme, Macmillan, you can just create. Everything will be clear. right? And L we have lychee. So Macmillan, right? Easy to remember. Fleckno, medal, lychee. So you can just create Macmillan. Abs Macmillan. So you can just create like that. Abs Macmillan, right? These three. And at the end, you know the code, this one, then you can easily add. So what earlier, heroic, last we have again sent Cecilia song, so you can just make it earliest, latest, or the earliest and the last, right? Then in between those plays we have the code, you should know what code. The wild, rival, ladies, right? Indian queen, emperor, tyrannic love, marriage. Then we have Aurangzeb, Zabe or Zeb, Aurangzeb, and then we have what? All for love. So all this is in the middle, and in that middle we have also one thing, because all the drama it was writing. So in the middle he has written 68. What? Dramatic poesy, right? And at the end we have the great one starting with 81. What? We have abs Macmillan. So you can just remember that. So all the order is correct. That's where you are going to get questions, and that's why we have, it's very important that you should know the order correctly. Let me tell you about TOEFL that you get question every single time, right? If what I mean is you get always question on Dryden, like 100% questions on question you get from Dryden, but we're not sure. It could be sometime one direct question, two indirect question, or sometime two direct and two indirect. So total four questions you can expect, and two question you can just, and one question from dramatic poesy 100%, and one where this Absalom and Achitophel. So that you have to know. So anyway, let me tell you about the Absalom and Achitophel. Remember the day 1681. 1781. Can you tell me the date? Why it's important? Because of Lives of the Poet. Remember, starting with 79 to 81. That you have to know. 81 also for the Absalom and Achitophel. Right? 88, just Great Revolution, that you should also know. 65, bubonic plague. 66, Great Fire of London. 1660, restoration, right? And these all you have to know. 49, execution, right? Then 49 to 60 is intergenum, right? And then what we have in between also we have age of the restoration till 1688. In your it is 1700 till. So these dates you should never forget in your mind when we talk about John Dryden. I hope it's about the date, and the you can just write clear in the chat box quickly, right? Then we'll begin. Great. So it's clear, right? Let me tell you about the Absalom and Achitophel. When you are done with that chronology stuff, what is the next thing? What is inside of it? Inside the particular poem. So Absalom and Achitophel, what you have to remember is that there are four figures that you have to remember. One is Absalom, then we have Achitophel, and then we have David, and one is more, one also very important. We have So, if you know four characters in Absalom and Achitophel, then your Absalom and Achitophel is clear. And when we talk, when you know all this, you should know who stands for who. So, let me just clear this and then write it one more time. So you can just write clear in the chat box. I didn't get yet. Okay. I hope you can see it clearly now. So, we have four character abs. Then we have Achitophel. Right, then we have David and we have Zimri. These, if you know what we can abs, what he represent is this. Uh, Manmoth, remember that? Monmouth. Then we have David into our Charles II, because there was a Popish plot and one event happened at that time. That's why we have, remember the date. Every event is something for Dryden. So remember the 78 one Popish plot. And what happened? The result is Absalom and Achitophel. To make happy who? Charles II. What he does? He wrote Absalom and Achitophel. Who wrote? Dryden wrote. Four character David and Zimri. Absalom, Marmoth. Then we have Sapsbury, and Zimri is Buckingham. So that you have to remember. Sometime in match the following, you can mess up with these two. You won't be able to mess up with this, but these two, all the time it happens this problem with everybody. So what you can do, A, B, C, then M, right? Like you can say the order of your letters A, B, C, D, F, right? A, B, C. Then we have M, Aki, because the second name of it. So you can just see, you can A, C, right, with SH, and abs MO. So that how you have to, or you just find your way to remember all this. David means Charles, DC. So you can just write this code A B A C D C, all these codes. Anyway, let me tell you the Buckingham right. So remember your historical background, Popish plot, and the Monmouth rebellion. Monmouth rebellion means Absalom is here, represent the Duke of Monmouth. Achitophel, his counselor, which is Sapsbury. Both together they make a plot to kind of betray Charles II, and those two are surrounded by bunch of other people that well, you have to remember all the other politicians, each of whom Dryden kind of bestow a biblical name. Dryden himself says, what about his work? It is not bloody, but it is ridiculous enough. I avoid the mention of great crime and applied myself to representing of blind sides and little extravaganza. So the hitting is hard but not foul. Very important. Monmouth into Absalom. Then we have David into Charles. Shaftesbury into Achitophel, and Buckingham into what? Zimri, who is old enemy of Dryden's in his time, right? So the poem places most of the blame for the rebellion, that Popish plot, the same story. And Charles, a very reluctant and loving man. So here Dryden present him as a very good man, right? Very good king. He is tolerant. He can be forgiving, and all these things. So the poem also refers to some of Poppy's plot. So he is our Dryden is always associated with all his nation, kind of patriotic. Whatever the court or whatever the king requires or whatever the event happened, he did something for it. So that's why he's a poet laureate, and that's where he created a lot of work that we read today. So uh, you can say he's a national poet. Right. So let me tell you about the plot. Plot is, as I told you, simple, very simple in fact, not very confusing. These two people just plot against the king. That's all you have to know. But let me tell you exactly what is this poem all about. So our King David there represent Charles II, reigning over a divided nation. Right. Absalom is Monmouth, David's son. Achitophel represents Shaftesbury plotting with Absalom against King David. Achitophel persuades Absalom to lead a rebellion. Absalom's little bit, then he eventually joined, and Achitophel gathers support from other, nearby or other politician. What happened? David, our Charles, learned the rebellion, but chooses what? Not to execute them, but the peaceful response. So what Dryden is showing that he is loving, forgiving, and a kind king. Who? Charles, right? So David speech is very famous here, highlights the loyalty and condemns rebellion consequences. At the end, what happened? Absalom just kind of drop the plan of kind of making plot. And what happened at the end? He goes to his side, David's side, and leading to alone Achitophel's downfall. So Achitophel's death happens, symbolize what? End of the rebellion, end of the Pope's plot. Easy. I hope Absalom and Achitophel is clear. In that, what you have to know the historical background of it. The question they ask from historical background, and they ask from the date and what historical background, Pope's plot, date. Remember, 1681. Right. So write quickly clear if it is clear to you. Anyway, the next is Mac Flecknoe. Mac Flecknoe, very important. We have that McLaren, right? Abs McLaren code, and that is all in the betterment. So Mac Flecknoe is actually famous for who? Our Thomas Sadwell, TS. Why he has attacked him? Because Thomas Shadwell criticized who? Mac Flecken, I mean Dryden, into his juvenile satire. Very important, juvenile, right? So that's is happening between both through the literary work, through the wits and the rhyme, right? So Mac Flecknoe. What is important? Protestant. This title is, remember, all the time they ask question from that. As you know, attack on Thomas Sadwell. Very important line it happens. I mean, line that you should know its opening line, and you get question from that too. All human things, all humane things are subject to decay, and when fate summons, what monarch must obey. Right. So disagreement between Thomas Shadwell and Dryden. Their quarrel is simple. They talk about the genius of Ben Jonson. Dryden talk about what comedy and wit. A sharp disagreement over the true purpose of comedy. Contention over the value of rhymed plays and plagiarism. So your Mac Flecknoe is clear. Remember the date, 1 year gap on all the works. Right. Then we have Religio Laici. And can you tell me Religio Medici is written by who? Medici. If you know, write in the chat box quickly. But anyway, let me tell you what is this religio laici. Full title you have to know. There was a question on that. A layman's faith. And what is basically it is a kind of a response to the publication of the translation of history critique due to Vieux Testaments by that French cleric Father Richard. So that's all you have to remember, the date, full title, and it was against what? The response of whom, right? So it consists 462 lines only. And again, some topics are there: opinions of several seats of philosopher, system of design of reveals religion, objection of dies, the objection of answer, digression to the translation of that father who just translated Old Testament, right? So that all things you have to what just have a basic idea about it. But other than that, what you have to remember: 1682 religio laici, a layman's faith. Remember the date. That's all is required for you to clear the question. Anyway, the Hind and the Pathar is very important. Questions based on this particular work. Basically, what question you get is that Roman Catholic Church, as he's a Catholic, Catholic is kind of pure and immortal. That's why he kind of Catholic as a milk white Hind, immortal and unchanged. Very important line. You get question from that. Anyway, other than that, I can just mention here 2600 lines are there. Full poem, a poem in three parts. Margaret has called it the great, the undeniable, something in the sui generic kind of poem of the Restoration era. It is its own kind of poem. It cannot be repeated. Just to remember that some critic has said about it. Dryden, as you know, converted to Catholicism. That's when he wrote the Hind and the Panther. Remember the date we have, uh, 88. Remember that glorious revolution. Anyway, this falls into three parts. First part about the description of religion. Second part about controversial topics of church authority. And the third part talks about the crown and the Anglican and Catholic churches. So first part is important where because of that a milk white Hind and immortal and unchanged. The Church of England as a Panther and milk as a what? Catholic Church. These two you have to remember always, right? Catholic is what? Milk. And we have Church of England is Panther. The Independent who are is Bear. The Presbyterian as Wolf. The Quakers as Hare. The Sociner as a Fork. The Freethinker as an Ape. And the Anabaptist as a Boar. So all these represent different, but basically you got question from these two. You didn't get any question from that yet, but who knows, they might ask. Just to remember ki there are other as an animal, right? I mean other things as an animal, it is presented there, all of them. Now we'll talk about all for love. Right, we are about to finish the dramatic part and the poetry part. We will left with dramatic poesy, which is quite a lot, and you get a lot of questions based on that. Anyway, all for love or the world well lost, very important, the full title and also the date, 78, the last play you can say in our code. What was the code? As you know, wild, right? Rival ladies, white rival ladies, then queen, emperor, remember? Then tyrannic love, then marriage, then what happened? Marriage, Aurangzeb, and then all for love. So this is all play in the middle that you can remember. Okay, so let me tell you about All for Love, basically based on Antonio and Cleopatra. It's an heroic drama tragedy written in blank verse. Blank verse, as you know, iamb, right? Sometime in penta, sometime in tetra, but here is penta, right? What iamb means unstressed and stressed five times into five times, then it becomes pentameter, right? And Dryden confines the action to Alexandria and focus their doomed hours, last hour of their life. Act 1, you can just read all through the notes. I'll just go quickly. Uh, it happens, it starts with Egypt's doom, the play, right? With one woman. Alexis is concerned with the relationship between Cleopatra and Antony. And then that Serapion hosts a festival to honor Antony's achievement. And then Ventidius arrives in Alexandria to help Antony. And Ventidius urges Antony to leave Cleopatra for more troop. But he doesn't. Cleopatra mourns for Antony's absence, some of the gifts that he sent to win him back, remember that. And Alex suggested Cleopatra tie a bracelet of Antonio's wrist, so that is again and one symbol. And then Ventidius accuses Cleopatra of being unfaithful to Antony. Cleopatra proves her royalty by showing a letter rejecting from Octavius. Antony proclaims his love to Cleopatra, overjoyed with her decision. So basically, what play opens, there are two guys, right? And we have our heroine Cleopatra and Antony. Then there is some clash in between, trust kind of issue, trust issue is there. And then what happened, they reunite through the proof. Then that's all happened in all first two acts, right? Then act 3 is something kind of plot twist is happening. Antony is returning from the battle, overwhelmed with the love. Ventidius being brings Dolabella, out Antony's wife. So then another trend. So Cleopatra, they are in love, right? The third party is coming now, the wife. So kind of betray feeling it will feel, right? Octavia appears with Antony's children. Again, another to kind of downfall, it's going to happen, right? Some turn is going to happen. And Cleopatra and Octavia, what argues over Antony's here. So these two girls are fighting over Antony. This all happened in act. What happens, convinces Antony to return to Rome with her, but Antony asks Dolabella to say goodbye to Cleopatra. Ventidius suspects Cleopatra and Dolabella of betrayal. Antony is enraged by rumors of Cleopatra's affair with Dolabella, and Octavia leaves kind of Antony hurt by his belief. So that thing is happening again. Another person between Antony and Cleopatra appears, that your Dolabella, right? Then again, some kind of twist and turn is happening, some kind of again trust issue. So this is all about that stuff, right? So act 5, what Antonius fleet actually betrayed Antony, and turning against Alexandria, Cleopatra flees advised by Alexis, who plans to betray her. And Alexis lies, telling Antony that Cleopatra is dead. Antony asks Ventidius, his good friend, that he, but friend, whoever is the friend will definitely refuse. Then Antony dies filing dies. How he died? Falling over the sword. That's how he died. And to the return, what happened, Cleopatra's suicide happened. She got bitten by what? Snakes in her. Important. Right. So, bosom, you can just say. So that's all happened. Now, our last thing and very important thing is what? An essay of dramatic poesy, which was published in, remember the date, 1668. Started in 1667, but completely published in 1668. But let me tell you here, drama. What is happening? As you know, event bubonic play, right? Remember the date 65. Everything was closed, right? There was nothing to work about. So what is happening? This is the set. Bubonic plague 1665, right? And English drama. So there is a river and these there is a boat, right? All these men, the men, four men are in the boat, right? In the river, right? In on the boat, four people, and they are all talking about what? Drama. So that's the setting that you have to remember, and it should be kind of fixed in your mind, because you get question sometime, not sometime. I have seen like 4 5 questions they have asked from this setting alone, right? Then they talk about who support who and what they support, so that you have to know in dramatic poesy. Anyway, we'll discuss very deeply, you know, or thoroughly in our session on criticism. So for that part you should also be there. But as we are going moving forward, it's better not to miss anything. Suppose you don't watch that criticism part, then you don't have to worry about. If you have attended this, then you don't have to go. But if you go, it's better for you, because the chances of getting another marks or another mark is very important, right? So let me tell you, it's all about, in the beginning, legitimate form of poetry comparable to the epic. Defends the English drama against the drama of the ancient and French. So, written during the plague of bubonic plays, remember, published in that day. Dryden refers who? To Sidney's defense of poesy, and the treatise is a dialogue between four speakers. Very important. Eugene, you can just create a code, US or USA, right? Eugene Sackville. You can create like that. USA. U Sackville. USA. So USA, this code about what? Modern drama. Not particularly about English, but modern drama. So USA and USA Montana. You can just create. Any other country you say in Critus? So cry. Do you have any country? Croatia you can make. Crow Howard. Asia है तो Croatia. Croatia Robert Howard. So Croatia. So Crow and Ho is there, that you can add any city there. In Croatia you can just add anything you want. How? Croatia howl or anything. Okay, so this code that should represent, I'm just giving you example that you can create. To who? Classical drama. So he's talking about old drama, right? Classical drama, CD is talking about. Or any city you can just put classical drama. We can put uh, drama Dallas, something Dallas or something. You can take put. So these two you have to remember with the code. If you remember, then everything is clear. These codes are very important for you to create. And then we have LI, Lycidas. So any country with this Lisbon, right? We can create Lisbon, another country with sadly. Sedmon, Lisbon, Sydney. you can create like that. French means obviously you can just make France, or any country in France. Milan, I guess. Milan is in Italy, right? So Lisbon, Sydney, France. So these code you can just create. Neander, simple, everybody knows, and it's very easy to remember. New York, you can just say, or Neander, England. What? Modern drama, English drama actually, and drama. So if you remember all this, and he represent who? Himself, Dryden. To Neander. So the you can make Dryden. Neander means Neander, and then English drama that you can create. So that's this code is very important, and if you know these, and if you just create note these codes according to your preferences. So basically, ultimate goal is that you should remember these representation. Definitely get one questions based on that itself. So it's a serious matter that you should not avoid. You can whatever you create. So first one we have already, what? USA, Montana. The second we have created something like Croatia. Then we have created Lisbon, Sydney, France, right? And then we have created Neander, Dryden, and Elizabethan drama. So English drama basically starting from where Elizabethan, very important. So when it is done, then I will be I'll make, you should be kind of sure that you have got one question correct in your exam itself. Anyway, let me tell you what other things that we should mention here. In the beginning, as I told you, there is a river, bubonic plague is happening, right? Some kind of virus is happening. There is a boat is basically like whatever, right? Boat is there are four people in the boat. One, two, three, four. The fourth one is Neander. The three is you Croatia. We have our the last one is Lisbon, right? It is four people are there. You can just create, that's your setting of the discussion. The days of following encounter with Dutch fleet, the English fleet near the mouth of Thames. The river name is Thames. Very important that you should know, right? Thames. Okay, the four fronts, and also they are actually seeing what? The noise from the battle. So kind of patriotic feeling was arising in all English people, not only these four Dryden's character, but also overall. So that is their self pride in being English. So kind of proud, I'm an English. So these four friends, as I told you, who supports what. So this is basically here all of this. But the what is inside, as you know, crisis, modern drama, we have made a code for this, right? And pioneered by Eugenius, upheld by critics. According to Lascelles or Lisbon, French, Sydney, right? What? English drama, a view shared by Neander. So he is actually talking about whole English drama, but Neander is talking about only Elizabethan drama, right? So who famously called Shakespeare the greatest soul? Very important. They have asked the question for ancient and modern both. So you have to remember this. So while Neander had previously defended Elizabethan, he now what? Talking about proposition against the skeptic writers, arguing that plays in rhyme and improvement over blank verse is important. So also switching from his original position, defending the blank verse tradition of the Elizabethan. So as you know, all Elizabethan plays are written in blank verse. blank verse, right? And he in the beginning, Neander supported all this, but later he little bit shifted, not completely but little bit. He said blank verse rhyme, or play should be in rhyme. So that also happened there. And one of the important thing is that he was invoking the unity poetry. He said about Ben Jonson is very important, that Ben Jonson, you know, followed the perfect unity of time. This is very important. They have asked question on that. And who supported? Our Neander. Again, another important thing that you have to remember, that it is he compared Shakespeare to Homer and Ben Jonson to Virgil. And some of the important extract that I have given you here, that can completely clear your doubts, whatever is there in your mind right now after discussing dramatic poesy. So it was the memorable day in the first summer of late war when our navy engaged the Dutch, a day wherein the two most mighty and best appointed fleets which any age had ever seen. Remember that all about shows the pride of being in English. Right. So that's what is happening in the beginning. To begin with, he talks about Shakespeare. What is most important, that all modern and perhaps ancient poets are the largest or comprehensive soul. Remember that. All the image of nature he talks about as a nature poet. For the, he actually referred Shakespeare. Yeah. And he also talks about Ben Jonson. So that all you have to remember. And agar if you want the complete text summary of dramatic poesy, again you can just go to your Google Classroom and download these notes, and you can just have fun. I mean, you just read and watch these videos. So basically it's a very big, complete line by line, not line by line, but kind of uh, phrase by phrase or sentence by sentence, paragraph by paragraph. I have kind of given the summary. It's very big, that you can only find where in our session when we have the complete talk on the dramatic poesy. So guys, we are done. We have learned a lot of thing about Dryden. Not a lot of thing, almost all the possible question that you will get. 100% in what, less than 2 hours, I guess. Anyway, now it's time for you to solve some PYQ on who, restoration poetry, and especially on Dryden. So let's begin quickly. The first one is, what is the correct sequence of the following? Again, sequence, as I told you, you know the date, right? First is what? We have, of course, Charles, that Caroline time. Then we have Jacobean. Then we have Restoration. We have Commonwealth, and this a kind of, here we have the code, not this correct one, BADC. So first we have the Jacobean era. This is very recent question, right? Jacobean 16 1625 to 49. Then we have 1649, the Commonwealth. And then we have Restoration, again the date you know, and the Augustan 1700 to 45. Then we have Romantic. Then we have what, Victorian. Then we have upon our modern, right? So easy to remember, the date is there, you can easily go solve the quiz and get the experience submitting your. It's very good. One, I'll just tell you tomorrow about your exam kind of environment, type of feeling when you do the exam, that I'll tell you anyway. Question number second, what is the correct chronological sequence of famous dramatist? Again, it's talking about dramatist. Who came first? You have to tell me. uh, Obviously that is Dryden first. Then we have Shirley. Then we have Congreve, and then we have Shaw, and then we have our on Macedon. So easy to, you don't have to kind of go deep. Dryden date, simple, 31 by Shirley, 41 William Congreve, 70 George Bernard Shaw, 56, and our modern is this G. Where is the? Wait a minute, let it load. Just give me a minute, something happened. Okay, we are back. Okay, last we have Edmund, that James Singe, 871. Again, match the following. Again, it's easy. Dryden wrote a dramatic poesy. B4 is where B4 is like in all of this, right? We can only eliminate this one right now. Then we have, of course, we have timber and discovery. We talked about it is about language, very important language and words for the common people. Remember that very important common people somewhere around somewhere somewhat like you're the lyric the preface to the lyrical ballads kind of a stuff is written there, so that you have to remember D2 is where D2 is where in one place, so you can easily answer. Sorry, D2, right? D2 is here only, so this is your correct one. All these you can eliminate. Easy to answer. Samuel Daniel, The Defense of Rhyme. It is the reply from a earlier poet that we have some rhymer, right, who wrote about something that he has replied. Horace, everybody knows Horace Has Poetica. Very easy to answer. Then we have question number 4. Who among the following are the two great masters of French language that T.S. Eliot contrast with Dryden? The question is about Dryden, not directly but indirectly, and Milton. We already discussed about this question, Racine and Baudelaire. Easy to answer, not kind too much to do. You can just easily go and download and do the quizzes. Also, question number 5 is on your screen. Arrange the following place in the chronological order of the publication. Again, order of the publication. You know the date of this, right? All for Love, 78. Right, then we have Venus Preserve, The School for a Scandal, Very. So that will be your latest one. C. School for a Scandal, 18th century one. Right, this is your 17th century. This is also 17th century. So as you know, Dryden came first, and then far later we have Y Shirley, right? So the country wife is later. So you can just put that thing. Right. So here is there DABC. We can just see the code. The country wife actually is the first one. 75 by Y Shirley. All for Love. 2 years gap. So very important and very close call. Venus Preserved, Thomas Otway, and the School of Scandal, again 18th century, as I told you, and is the answer. Right. Question number 6. Arrange the following authors in the chronological order. Again, author chronology. So first, right, GLC, Gower, Langland, Chaucer. So we have here Langland first, which means B should be first. Then we have Chaucer, that which means GLC. C is there. Remember the code, we have GLCMSM. Remember, GLC your car, C LCM is your mathematical formula, SM is what? Your social media. That means Gower, Langland, Chaucer, Moore, Middleton, and here we have Skelton, and then we have what? More, Thomas More. So all these code you have to know to answer all these things. So whatever the code I give, it is like 100% they're asking question from that. So as I told you, GLC, we have Langland first, which is, as I told you, B, C. Then we have, of course, Dryden, easy to answer. And then we have Pope. And then we have, so that should be the answer. B, C, D, E, A. Where is it? B, C, D, E, A. Easy to answer, right? Okay, next question on Again, chronology order, as I told you, what is the Tempest, All Full of Volpone, and the School for Iskandal. Again, the School for Iskandal at the end itself. So where is the in all of these two you can kind of delete. I mean, do. All for love, of course, should be before the Tempest, and so before A and C will come what? B and D. So where is BD set in this one? So BD set 2. We are left with 2. So these two are correct. In that you can just select something. Like how you gonna do? The Tempest is the latest one, which was published in when 16, somewhere around 1630, somewhere here. And Volpone is somewhere around 1605. So obviously, what could be the answer? Your Volpone is first, so she should be here, right? And then we have on the top, and our Tempest is in between 1613, so you can just put it here. Where is the date? 1611. I always get confused with this, but again, little bit confusion is not a problem because that's a close call and we can get the question. So remember, every single date you have to know. Again, I told you about the Shakespeare code, and if you know the Shakespeare code you will understand, and also about the Ben Jonson code we had, right? So that you also have to remember Shakespeare code. Remember earlier work, latest work, and in the middle period. This is in the beginning. All we start with Henry, what Tempest, right? And all these here, starting with the comedy career. Remember, with the work itself, comedy of error. In the between we have the code also to get all that. And then here what we have, great tragedies. Tragedy starting with Hamlet. We have Hamlet, the last one, as you know, Hamlet. Then we have Othello, Macbeth at the end, and here is what, King Lear. So through that code you can put it here. Also remember all the orders. I hope you, and how we can easily solve the question from anywhere, whatever the way they ask. And if you know all these codes, tell me how easy it is to answer. The heroic couplet is what? Heroic couplet means what? Rhyming, right? A rhyme is happening here, rhyme is happening here, and 10 syllable is always there. Remember that 10 syllable, we talked about it. And if it's, we have octo is not in heroic couplet, right? 8 syllable, whatever is there, not 12 cannot be, because it is Alexandria, it is called, right? So that can Alexandria, we talked about it. This 12 is Alexandria, means 6. Then there is uh, 6 division is there, that usually in what is Spencerian stanza. So 10 syllable lines that rhyme, easy to answer, right? Because we always talk about the form of the all the literary, poetic form, poetic meter. Always when we start any session, we always talk about the form and the development of the technique, because you get question from that always. So if you have attended our previous session, it will be easy for you to answer these kind of question. Anyway, there was a question from where, our Absalom and Achitophel. When nature promoted and no law denied promiscuous use of concubine and bribe, then Israel monarch, after heaven's own heart, his vigorous warmth did variously impart to wives and slaves. Okay, that doesn't follow the rhythm. But anyway, remember that. Again, heroic, and from which, remember 10 syllable, which where it was taken, it was from Absalom and Achitophel. It is again about your abs. Remember, abs we have, then Achitophel we have, David we have, and then what we have, Zimri. Again represent Evan. This is Monmouth, this is Shaftesbury, this is our Charles, and this is Buckingham. Remember all these codes. Then Europe, Solomon, Achitophel is clear. But anyway, let me tell you about this line. These lines actually suggest David after heaven's own heart, which he referenced. So as we know, he was represented as kind, so that's what he it is mentioned here, right? Heaven's own heart, his vigorous warmth, and very kind, forgiving, tolerable, all these kind of characteristics Dryden has given for David there as who? Charles the second. Okay, others are McFleckney that we already did. Another question again by Pope. So as we know, by Pope, Dunciad more or less. This is by who? Cowper? No, this is by Dyer and Denham. Dyer and Denham, these two, Dunsey and Pope, and Absalom and Achitophel, our Dryden. So easy to answer, not much of it. Again, chronological order, always you get question from that. What is Hind and the Pathar? You know at the end, right? We have Macmillan in the between, remember? Abs, then Macmillan, Macflecknoe, and other work. And at the end, we have what? Song, Saint Cecilia song, and then we have what? Our Hind and the Patha. The Hind we have and the Patha. Remember the date? 80, somewhere around 81. So Macflecknoe obviously before that, so you can just mention D first, then B, Hind and the Patha. Then we talk about Tyre. All these modern are there. So wherever is DB in the beginning, you can easily answer. You don't have to go all and know all this. Anyway, all this we will know when we reach to that session. But even though we know only this much, we could easily answer any kind of questions. Okay, the Wild Swan, as you know, is by WV's Wedding Fine. Question number 2, find the chronological order of the right in terms of again chronological order, right? Of course, we have Dryden early, Bacon before that, then we have Steele, we have Lamb, then we have at the end Arnold, right? So easy to answer. Let it load. Okay, taking some time. Let me see. Only 4 more questions, guys, and then we are done for the today. Anyway, again, as I told you, Bacon first, then we have Dryden, Steele, Lamb, Arnold. Easy to answer if you know the order or the code we have made. Which among the following is true about religio life? About religion, Dryden wrote, of course, that's correct. Strongly criticized Anglican Church. Religio Laici means a layman's faith, that we know the full title. Laici was published in 1690. No way, it was way before that, right? So A and C should be correct. This is not there, but religio. Easy to answer, not Anglican, but it was on Puritan. Remember that? Easy to answer. Remember the date 82. 82. In the Pathar 87. That's all you have to remember. Question number 14. Again, chronological order. So you are going to kind of get 100% in that. So these are all the modern. So first one, obviously, we have a dramatic poesy. Then we have the lives of poet, D. Then we have our culture and anarchy. That is in Victorian, but before that we have modern romantic, which is E. Then we have Victorian, lives of the poet. in AD Lives of the Poet also, right? First one, this obviously, so we can just make A. Essay of Dramatic. The second is the Lives of the Poet from the classical D. Then we have uh, lyrical ballads, which will be E. Dorian. Where is it at? Culture and Anarchy. Then at the end we have Rooms for Honor. A D. Easy to answer. Is it there? A D E C B correct. So kind of very easy questions that you're getting. Question number 15. The character who discusses the relative merits of French drama, English drama in Essay of Dramatic. So, merits of French drama, English drama. Of course, two characters talk about it. Who are they? Who discusses the relative merits of French drama and English drama. As we know, English drama talked about Neander, but he talked about basically Elizabethan, right? So, what should be the answer? The one who supported both was, remember, Lisbon, our code Lisbon, Sydney, France. Sydney is what? That your city. So, Lisbon, Sydney, France. So, we have supported English drama, and we have French both. So we have listed this. Easy to answer. You don't even have to read a lot if you know all these code. Other code we know USA, and then we have Montana, right? That modern drama. Remember that, which is Eugene, USA, Eugene. Neander, we have Neander, Neander, Modern Man, Dryden, Elizabethan, blank verse, all these he has talked about it. Easy to answer. Right, Critus, we have code for Critus also, some kind of Croatia kind of code. So if you just kind of go back and listen one more time, then your drama is clear. Anyway. Who among the following was not one of the original members of Johnson Literary Club? Anyway, we haven't reached Johnson, so Dryden would not be there. Easy to answer. Right? Who does Achitophel represent in Johnson allegorical? So Achitophel, we have the code, remember? Abs, right? Shaftesbury. And then we have this is Monmouth. Remember, Abs is Monmouth, and then we have Achitophel with, remember, Shaftesbury. Then we have Zimri. Zimri for what? Buckingham. And then we have David. David for Charles. Same kind of question. Answer Shaftesbury. Absalom, you would have answer Monmouth. Easy to answer through these old codes. Okay, that's all, guys. Tomorrow we're gonna talk about a restoration comedy. Very much that you're gonna get one question. I hope you like the session. If you have any suggestion, you can always write in the comment box, and don't forget to comment anything. If you like it, do. If you didn't like it, say you didn't like it. All these things, whatever you want, you can just put whatever the suggestion you want, whatever the code you want, whatever is there, you can just discuss also, or whatever the mistakes I made in between, that you can also mention. I will definitely correct from the next class, but anyway, it's up to you. And definitely like the class, share if possible, and subscribe, very important, right? And of course, join the course as soon as possible, guys, because I don't know when we will just stop going publicly live. It will just, it's a matter of time. And so before that, you should join. No, you should Anyway, some of the lectures you will be getting, but what is most important is that you should do all PYQ and notes. So my focus is to give you the perfect notes and these PYQs. The lecture you will get anywhere, you go and you will find lecture, in YouTube all over the place. But what you don't get is the notes and the PYQ, because that's when when you watch a lesson, then if the lesson is gone. But if you have the notes, then you don't have to worry about it, it will be there. So but first is PYQ. PYQ is what I mean is we have the quiz session, all this, the same format, the same kind of software which gives you, in your exam, when you go and do that CBT, the same kind of pattern, the same kind of environment, the same kind of settings, all that blue, green, red, all these marks, no, that you will get. So definitely you should join our quiz program. Again, I tell you, it's not too much. It's just 2000 for these all quiz and notes. The both of these you are getting in 2000 in PDF format. And if you want printed material, you have to go for our cracking series. So guys, do not miss it. It's very important. It's like a gold mine for you. You can just dig, as much gold as you can, because that's what the gold or the diamond represent, the questions that you will get. And whatever I'm teaching, whatever the session I'm taking right now, there are 2 to 3 questions every time you're going to get. So most importantly, you should join the course as soon as possible. Thank you so much, and I'll see you tomorrow. Bye bye, and have a good day.